Well, it's good to see all of you guys, and it's good to be with you. And my name's Randy, as I said before, and I've been working with Stuart for the last couple of months and developing this material. Make sure that you have one of the booklets, and what I want you to do is kind of what Larry's already done. Take the inside out, which is the card, and then that next folding page there, and put those to the side. Would you do that?
I don't have those.
So you...
oh, is this thing?
No, you've got... let me give you one that's actually stapled.
But I get the discount version.
Yeah. Just had some made, and these are the finished ones here. So take out the part that isn't stapled in, and you'll have some fill in the blanks. I was a pastor. I served as a pastor for 30 years, and so it's always important for me that people take notes and that they ask and answer questions. So that will be part of what we do tonight. I encourage questions and certainly encourage you to take notes. In fact, I even made some fill in the blanks from my old school. What I've been doing for a long time. Here's our mission as we talk to you tonight, is to offer a new way of thinking about finances. There is a fundamental way that we've all been thinking about. It's really accumulation. How do I accumulate enough money? I know for me, I'm 56 years old. I'm thinking about retirement. My son has Down syndrome. He needs to be taken care of after I leave this earth. And so my first thought is accumulation. How do I get enough? And how many of you have been through some of the Dave Ramsey stuff? Yeah, the sad part is when he goes, when you start at age 27 and accumulate all that money, then you can have all this money to retire. Well, when you're 56, that doesn't work so well. And you're like, great idea. Now, where's the time machine that I can jump in and go back? So we want to talk about a different way of thinking about finances, and that really is cash flow as opposed to accumulation. And as we go through today, you'll see why that might make a difference. Here's our goal. We're not selling securities. We're not selling you any kind of a product. We are here to educate you and coach you, and insofar as you work with us, it's really for education and coaching, and that's really what we help people do, walk through the process of moving into a positive cash flow situation where you can multiply your income. So here's Mr. Einstein said this: we can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them. You know, all of us, even when we were young, and certainly for me when I was young, I had the mentality that said, you know, I got to accumulate. So that was my mindset. I got to save all that I can, as my dad used to say, save all I can and can all I get. But guess what? It didn't really work for me, and so if I keep trying to do that more, I'm not sure it's going to solve my problem. And here's what Ralph Waldo Emerson said: the mind once stretched by a new idea never returns to its original dimensions. My mother was also a preacher, and she used to love this quote. And it's true. Once you start thinking in a new way, then you can't help. It's hard to go back. So I want you to be thinking about this idea, or open to this idea, that maybe other people have taught you only what they want you to know about financial concepts. Now, what that means is that everybody's got something to sell, right? They've got a mutual fund, they've got a bank account, they have some product that they're trying to sell, and they want you to think their way about that. And you know those ways. Now I want you to maybe get into your tool belt another way of thinking that might be outside of it, because they want you to know just a certain way of thinking about finances, and there might be some other options outside of that. So most of us look at our finances. Now, a lot of you guys are financial people, so I apologize for saying this, but a lot of people look at their finances like complicated math equations, right? Oh, I don't know what to do. How many of you run into people like that just don't know what to do? When I was a pastor, I said, hey guys, every one of you, I want you to set up a budget. That was back in the old days when you'd have a huge green sheet that was like this wide and this long, and you wrote down each month and what you were going to... I said, it's easy. Just write down the months, what you're going to spend each month, total it down the right column, boom, we got a budget. None of them could figure that out. They're like, what? How would you do that? And so a lot of people, it's things that seem simple, for them it's very, very complicated and hard for them to figure out. It's really this simple though, is how do we increase the margin in our financial life and put that margin to work? It's those two things. We all have income, We all have expenses. Boo, yay on the income, boo on the expenses. And the difference between the income and the expenses is our margin. Whether you are in a business, whether you are running your own home, the difference is that margin. So what we want to help people do is to look at how do you lower your expenses. Maybe there's something you can do to lower the cost of insurance and what you're paying for risk management. Maybe there's less cost for taxes or less cost for the interest that you pay. And then on the other side, you can do two things for your income. One, you can work more. How many of us have tried that approach? I'm just going to spend more hours and crank out the effort and make it happen. Or maybe a better choice is to make your money work for you more. In fact, here's what the best thing to do, to take those expenses, lower those expenses, crank some extra money out of that, take that money, move it up to the top line, and make that money work for you, money that wasn't being captured before. And this is what we do as we coach people. Most of us are working really hard to make ends meet. So here's what I want you to do in your booklet. There are these questions. What are the biggest financial hurdles that you have experienced in the past? Would you write down an answer to that, please? Oh, you need a booklet, don't you, man?
Right here.
He doesn't have the
Well.
middle parts, yeah.
Yeah, that's it, that's it.
Stuart, help him out there.
I think I did some page two. Oh yeah, here it is.
Yeah. It turned out blue when they copied it. Don't ask me why. The lady at the copy place said, well, that's just the way it works.
That's one, that's more.
So go to that next one. What's your financial objectives going forward? Just name a couple. You don't have to go in depth, but what's your financial objectives going forward? I told you what mine were. I need to retire at some point, and I have a son that needs to be provided for. So that's my financial objective going forward. And my other kids, I have 5 children. The other 4 would like me to leave them some money behind as another objective. That's their objective anyway. I'm not sure it's mine. What's the biggest obstacle that you have to getting there? My biggest obstacle in the normal approach is having enough money to be able to save enough money to be able to get a return on that money so that I have the income flow necessary. And the final question is, what are your financial strategies to get there? So just, again, write down a couple. I know we could spend all night discussing financial strategies for the rest of your life, but what are a couple of them that you are working right now? My intention is I have 5 kids. Maybe I could sell a couple of them, make a little money that way.
How much are they?
There's not much of a market for older kids, so that's the only problem. I missed the chance when they were babies, I guess.
Depends on what you need it for.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Kiyosaki did Robert Kiyosaki did a study. He said if 100 people were given $10,000 today, what would be the results a year from now? I'd like to know what your answer would be to this, so think about it. 80%, if you gave them $10,000 today, a year from now they would have nothing. They're who we call the spenders. We all have a bucket list. I know I do. Disney World's calling my name, and I would like to go there and stay in a Disney hotel. So I could think of something to do with at least a good part of that $10,000. You have another 16% that are the accumulators. They're going to save the money, and they're going to get 5% on that 10,000, and that's good. Then you're going to have the 4% that will have 20,000 to $1 million, and those are the people that are really, we can call them the wise people. They know how to multiply their money, and that's really our focus tonight. So where do you fit in? What do you typically? Somebody tell me which category do you think you find yourself in? I know for me, at least a big part of it, I would want to spend. What about the rest of you? What would you do with it?
Well, if you look at my history, I'd be on the top there.
Okay, good. Somebody else?
One time or another, I've been in each of those.
Have you? Right. What was your name? I'm sorry.
Rich.
Rich?
Yeah.
Yeah, Rich, what do you think?
I guess in reality it'd be spender.
Right. I had a friend, this is the honest truth, he ended up being my brother's partner. He went in a game show, he won $20,000. Unlike most of us, he won a watch. He went right down to the jewelers and said, how much will you give me for this watch? He turned everything that he won into cash. He's turned that cash today into over $1 million. And that was probably 20 years ago. He learned how to multiply that money. Most of us, the $20,000 from The Price is Right would not become $1 million, but it did for him. So what we're doing for a lot of people is not working. So here's where we are. We're playing the bank's game. Isn't this a crooked game? You give the bank your money, you loan them your money, and they give you how much?
1 to 2%.
1 to 2%. What do they do with your money?
Invest it.
Lend it out.
Lend it out, and they're able to securitize that and then lend it out again, right? And so sometimes they lend it back to us. That's the crazy part. They give you 1% and then they charge you 14% if you don't pay, or 18% if you don't pay your credit card on time, and you pay it off. And so the bank's game, playing the bank's game means that you get 1/10 of 1% from the bank, and the bank makes 90% on your money. What a deal. We're controlled by money's demands, what money says we do, unfortunately. We get confused and distracted. We're always thinking about everything else that we can do. Man, we're busy. Part of the accumulation problem is that you spend all your time focusing on how to get the next buck, that you don't think about what you're doing with the money that you do have. Very easy to get confused and distracted, and we're not in control of our earning potential. We have the ability to do more with what we have if we were to think about it. So here's where we want to be. We want to be the bank. So instead of being the one that is getting back 1/2 of 1%, we want to be the one that's getting the 14%. We want to be the one that is multiplying our money like the bank does, and we'll show you how to do that. We want to be free from money's control. We want to be in control of it. We want to be informed and in charge, and we want to be laser focused on multiplying our cash flow and working towards our vision. And that's what 180 Cash Flow Strategies wants to do for you. So, for you, what does your future look like? Describe it. Tell me what you want to do in your future. Some of you are a little bit older. What do you want to do in your future? What does it look like?
Travel.
Travel. Okay, what else?
Spend money on my grandson.
Easy to do, easy.
What
A
else?
little bit of golf.
A little bit of golf. Yes, I'm with you, man. Loving the golf. What else?
More musicals and dinners and plays.
When I was pastoring, I got to go all over the world. I went to Thailand and Africa and Central America. I'd love to go back to those places with my wife. You know what? The second time around, it cost a lot more money because I stayed in places she would never stay in. So I had to have a lot more money. Plus, the church was paying for my tickets back then, and now I'd have to pay for my airfare and a nicer hotel. So that's what I'd like to do, is do some traveling, but it's going to cost me. What else? What would you like to do?
I just want the freedom of my time, so
Yeah.
I can do whatever I want.
That's cool. What would you like? What is do you have a hobby or something you enjoy doing?
Just,
You want to find out what that is.
yeah.
That's good. Do you know what your current cash flow is? You got a pretty good idea of the difference between the income and outgo? It's interesting, we're doing this seminar in cash flow. A lot of people don't even know what theirs is. They kind of, after the fact, they might guess, but they're not sure. How do you feel about it? Do you know how to increase it? I want you to think about those questions. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to change our thinking, and here's where you get to fill in the blanks. So that's on the next one. So approach your spending like banks and businesses do. And what we want to encourage people to do is not ratchet down their spending so they're living on rice and beans and rice and beans. We want them to choose how much they're going to spend. That's the first thing, to really make a choice. That's what businesses do, right? They decide ahead of time, this is what we're going to spend our money on. They make some choices. And boy, I was looking at some pictures of like Chase Bank's headquarters building in New York. Those guys spend some money on some things. You look at that, man. The granite, building, it costs $1 zillion. So you choose what you're gonna spend it on, and then you track it. A lot of people don't track what they're spending, and because of that, they can't get control of it. And then being disciplined. The thing we're gonna talk about tonight requires discipline, no doubt about it. I want to challenge you to raise your vision. So many people have those binoculars well focused on their toes. They know only what's right in front of them. They are not really thinking about where do I go from here. And so what we need to do is raise our vision and to look longer term. I want to challenge you to say, maybe you can do more with your money than you thought that you could. And so we're looking at multiplication instead of addition. How do I get my money to multiply? I want it to be like rabbits. I don't want it just like adding rocks to the bag. I want it to be like rabbits, so that it's multiplying and becoming more. And then we want to anticipate economic cycles. You know, you all probably know this, that if you kept your money in the stock market over the long term, you get about 10% return. But how many people, their average return of everybody is something like 4 or 5%? Why? Stock market goes down, they get scared, they sell off. Stock market goes up, they get greedy and they buy in. So what happens is that they're selling when it's low and they're buying when it's high. Selling when it's low, buying when it's high. And so consequently, the average person has like 3 or 4% return and a 10% market, because they're not anticipating the economic cycles and looking at how to do well in either side. And we want to challenge you to lengthen your time horizon to see where that's going to take you, not just today, but down the line in the future. What does that mean? For your children, for your family, we want to talk about empowerment versus entitlement. Instead of saying, here's some money, we want to empower them to do what it is they could do. What if your family could set up a fund that would make a difference in the world because of what you've left behind? We want to transfer true wealth, a real understanding of how to deal with money. And we want to set a family legacy so that my family can say, our family, the Sanford family, is able to do something important. I love the example these guys set. Bill Gates, he figured out how to multiply his money. And when he got it all, he could have bought his kids gold-plated yachts, right? Every one of them. But instead, what did he do? He said, it matters that I have money to be able to make a difference in the world. And I want to show you how to keep making a difference in the world. And that's the kind of legacy we want to pass on. So here's a review. What we're doing is not working. We have to change our thinking to change our lives. And so approach your spending with tracking and discipline. I forgot the word choice on that one. Raise your vision. Engage multiplication instead of addition. Anticipate those economic cycles. Lengthen your time horizon. Let me tell you about this guy. He grew up poor and he didn't even know it. How many of us were in that category? My dad, I remember him telling me, I'm making $72 a week. And that he seemed to be saying that in such a way that that didn't seem like very much money. When you're 6 years old, $72 seems like a lot of money, but it wasn't very much. We grew up poor too, so I know what that's like. But you don't know it, right? You're having fun. All you need is a can to kick down the road and a stick to hit your brother with. That's all I needed, so we were fine. But he was a serial entrepreneur, started a lot of different businesses. He lived a reasonable lifestyle and reinvested his money so that it multiplied. He's even able to get a private Christian education for his kids. But here's what he discovered. When his oldest daughter turned 16, he says, here's my car. It was a few years old. She said, Dad, I can't take your car. Why not? You put me in this school. It was your choice. But these kids expect me to have a new car. I need a new car. So what happened? He had innocently entitled his kids rather than empowering them. Made them think, man, I need this, when that wasn't true. Well, I'd like to introduce you to that businessman, that baby boomer, and his name is Stuart Funky, and he's going to tell you the rest of the story. Yay. Welcome him, would you?
Hey.
Thanks, Randy. I got to thank Randy for coming along and shortening the workshops. Because my workshops take 2 to 3 hours, and he's going to try to keep me in an hour, so we'll see how that works. The rest of the story, by the way, for those that know me already, you may know the rest of the story. But between '68 and 2000, I was in the restaurant business in Hawaii for about 5-6 years. Farrell's Ice Cream Parlor, actually. Bob Farrell was my boss for a while. And I came back and finished some schooling up at the University of Oregon. Went into the insurance business because my dad was an insurance agent, so property and casualty insurance. I built an agency in Eugene. We then wrote software and merged with another company up here in Portland called Ram Computers and sold software and automation systems to computers, and went on in the financial world then with a certified financial planner and a bunch of things like that. And between 1975 and 2006, I also was building real estate with my twin brother. I have an identical twin brother, and he stayed in Hawaii after him and my sister both came to Hawaii, worked for me, met their spouses, and you know, he ended up staying there building construction. And we did very well for many years. One house was built another to another. He was doing custom homes, and we did spec every so often. I pour the money in, he puts the deal in. The last project we did, we actually built a project that was a multi-million-dollar project from proceeds, and he began to leverage it. Where it wasn't leveraged initially, he began to add hard money to get the next piece. And this happens to be my story of both claim to fame and claim to shame all in one shot, because Obama has been staying in the houses that we built in 2005-06 as his winter White House. So if you go up to Obama's winter White House on the web, you'll see the houses, some of the houses that we built. Unfortunately, the market shifted. Unfortunately, I had actually co-signed on some notes for him with some friends of mine, and then you know what happened in between 06 and 08. We had a meltdown in the mortgage industry. We had a meltdown in the real estate agency, the broker dealer that I was with. They were big real estate people with huge real estate stuff. They went out of business. One thing led to another. He couldn't pay back the loans. I finally had to claim bankruptcy in 2010 to protect my family and my firm, Family Wealth Institute, and sold the firm to my partners, my junior employees. So you went from multi-millions of dollars to underwater real fast because of that 2006-07 deal. But from it, I learned a couple of important lessons that we all need to learn. Number one is that your partner is your spouse, not your twin brother. In fact, my scriptures all say, "Thou shalt not leave thy mother and thy father and thy twin brother, and cleave to your spouse," because he knew more about me than Anna actually did. But what did she know about building and construction? And I married her 13 years ago. She worked for the University of New Mexico. So W-2 was the world that she lived in. To loan out $1 million, to sign notes for $500,000, and that's just like, why would I even talk to her about that? Right? Well, that was a mistake. Also, Proverbs says, "Don't be a surety to another." I had one friend that came up, sold his house for $2 million cash in California, came up and stayed with Ann and I for a couple of weeks as we helped him buy another house. He wanted to put some of his money somewhere, so he loaned $500,000 to my brother. I co-signed on it because I wanted to be sure that I protected him from the losses. I didn't need money, it wasn't a sale or anything like that, he wasn't one of our investors. However, his attorney, when the money couldn't get paid, decided that I must have been an investment advisor for him, and so they got into a whole securities violation. So you can read all about that on Google. If you just go to google.com, you can see what a terrible person I am. I actually paid back my friend about $300,000 in the process immediately before we ever got into the lawsuit. But my brother was never able to pay him back, so I paid him what I could before finally having to claim bankruptcy. It says, "Don't be a surety to another." It tells that in Proverbs. I violated that rule. It also says divide your assets in 7 or 8 places in Deuteronomy. I always did that for my clients. None of my clients were invested in this project, besides myself and a couple of my friends. But it just kind of took all the money down. Here's something else I learned that was very, very important. I always knew that God owns everything I have. On the upside, when we had property in Hawaii, we had one property that actually we built for $1.6 and sold it for $5 million in 2006. Unfortunately, I had allowed my brother to collateralize that against his other big projects over here. So we saw $1.8 million leave closing in cash going to this other company, Eastern Loans, hard money lender, and they went bankrupt, and he foreclosed on all those anyway, so that was fun. Paid $235,000 in capital gains tax for something you didn't get. It's a lot of fun. But God owns it all, both sides. He owns the upside and he owns the downside. If it rains or it doesn't rain. So that's kind of free to know that, sorry Papa, I lost it, or it didn't rain for 7 years, or whatever the situation was. He owns the upside, he owns the downside. We're just to be good stewards of our children, of our land, of our kids, and the resources that he gives to us. What's your story? Everyone in here has a story. And everyone out there has a different story. And most of them have some cycles that they've been through. And if they don't have a story, it's just a matter of time before they have a story. So, but let's go back to talking about some paradigm shifts that I've been through this process of the last since 2005 and especially since 2010, since I've sold the financial firm. I met some people in Hawaii, Chris and Tanisha Souza, and they began to challenge me on some ideas about cash flow versus accumulation and how we can make our cash flow work for us. And then as I came back and reflected over the last couple of years, I realized that as corporations, we've always done that. We always know how to manage money in a corporate way. It's not about accumulating lots of big 401ks for them. It's about how many Dutch boys can I build. Randy's got a friend in his CEO Plus company that I remember meeting him a couple, 3 years ago at one of the CEO forums, and he was struggling in his first Dutch boys, about $100,000 to get involved in it. Now he's got 8 of them, and now he's actually loaning out the $100,000 necessary to own the Dutch boys to other people, and he's got about $1 million plus cash flow going per year. He builds more Dutch boys. First one was tough. Starbucks, what do? Do they build more Starbucks or bigger Starbucks? Anybody know?
More.
They build more, okay? And so what corporations do, if we would just apply those principles individually, it changes everything. Some of the math I'm going to show you is pure mathematics, okay? There's no magic about that, but it's a paradigm shift on the way we think. And Randy tried to hit a few of those points on the way in here. First of all, how do businesses manage their cash flow? What do they do with the money that comes in? Now, my business consultant over here, Mr. Larry Briggs, has been teaching this forever. What do they do with accounts receivable, accounts payable? What do the banks do with the money? Randy mentioned that you can maybe get a 1%, you loan your money to the bank in a savings account, and then they loan it back out, right? Anywhere from 4% on a really good mortgage to 28% if you forgot to pay your credit card on time, somewhere in between. And they also have this fractional reserve system that's been in place since 1913, and they can actually loan it out 9 times. So while they're giving you 1% on the money you loan them, they're making closer to 100% or more on the money that you've loaned to them. That's a pretty good deal, right? Now that doesn't seem very fair. They actually want to help you do that as well. And that's what they've done with businesses. They have something called revolving lines of credits and furniture stores and Costco. How much do you think Costco paid for that $3.5 million inventory sitting there? Larry's got their answer. 0. They haven't paid for it yet, have they? It flips that usually twice in a month. So that's about $7 million of inventory that's flipping that you've come in and you paid for, and they have yet to pay the vendors. Now Walmart on the other side of the coin, they're a little bit tougher. Sometimes they don't even start the invoicing 30-60-day accounts payable cycle until after you bought the product. So it could be sitting on the shelf for 5 months before somebody buys it, then they give you 30 days or 60 days, But all the companies are like that, okay? They get the money into the account immediately and they pay the vendors on the 30 or 60 day, whatever it is. They're not robbing the vendors, they're just doing accounts payable. But the money goes directly in. But we've been taught to do what? Put our money in the savings account and have a 6-month emergency supply set up. So let's say that's $5,000 for a month for your cost of living. So that'd be how much in your emergency account that you should have nice and safe and sound?
6 months times 5,000,
Yeah,
30,000.
$30,000. So let's give the bank $30,000 to use for 1% or 0. Well, they then multiply that 100%. That's what we have been taught. Corporations aren't doing that. So let's talk about, can we do that? Well, yes, we actually can, but why don't we? Don't know how. Thank you, Lee. We haven't been taught that. That's not what the financial planner, me, would teach you. That's not what the real estate guy that wants to sell you more real estate, or the mortgage broker that wants you to get a new loan to save you 1% on your interest, and extend your loan out again 30 years. So we've been taught by the marketplace what they want us to know. Corporations know how to generate cash flow. They know how to use that over and over again. How many of you can think about, like, real estate? Would it be nice to have, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 or 10 apartment complexes or 10 rentals that were totally paid for, and it would just generate that cash? How many people you know have tried to do that and buy a realtor and then buy another rental, right? Okay, we call that snowballing rental. Basically, you know, they get their first property, and then they take the revenue from that property plus the next property they buy to pay for the second. So they got two properties paying for this one and this one. Then they do that again, now they got this one and this one paying for this one. So it becomes quicker and quicker to be able to buy the third, the fourth, the fifth, right? It's all about the cash flow. The risk is not really in the value of the real estate, by the way. The risk is in, am I cash flowing? If the renter stops paying and you got a big mortgage, what happens?
You're in trouble.
You're in trouble. You can lose the property. Okay? The only way to really play it safe with the banks is to either not have them in the game at all, that's the best, no debt, right? Or number two, be so over leveraged they don't want it back because they don't want that on their books. You know, then they let you live in your house for another 2 years while you're in this theoretical foreclosure process, right? So anyway, the point is, it'd be nice to do that, but how many people in the everyday marketplace can do that, common mom and pop? How many can build up a dozen rental properties? It's very tough, okay? We're gonna teach you how maybe you can do that, but using another method to get started earlier in that game. But we still wanna get into what we call long-term cash flow. So you can start with what we have. Now, let's see what we got here. All right, I'm going to talk about one of probably over 40 strategies that we use in teaching you about different kinds of corporate strategies or individual strategies that can apply to your personal life or your small business.
Stuart, I had them pull this out, so they might want to grab a hold of this.
All right, so pull out that sheet that says Income Snowball, and you want the one side that
Where you gonna be now, or?
The one that says IRA on the left side.
this one right here. Okay, that side. I don't want you to turn over to this side yet. I want you to try to just watch this side right here. Okay? Now, without looking at your sheets here right now, you can write them as we get to the parts that we need to, but I want you to change your thinking. I want you to tell me, what do we normally do with the money that we receive? Well, let me back up again. First of all, I want you to realize that we begin with the end in mind. You guys all heard that from Stephen Covey, right?
Yeah.
What would be nice is to have permanent income from things like pensions and real estate cash flow and franchises and businesses like, you know, Dutch Brothers and Starbucks and trail income and maybe royalties from music or whatever it might be. So all these different things are what we really want to get to. So let's begin with that in mind. And we're going to go back with the beginning in mind, now say, how do we get there? How do we get to getting permanent income streams? And we're going to show you one strategy that the Susans and the White taught us, and it is like unbelievable. I never ever saw this. In 30, 35 years as a financial advisor, I never saw these principles being used this way. First of all, when you get a paycheck, what do you do with that money?
Hey,
Put it in your checking account, right? And there you go, and they give you a big whopping 0%, right? And then from that, what do we do from that?
Pay the
Bills.
bills.
Pay the bills. So we got
Here's
bills to
some
pay,
money, spend it.
we got giving maybe, which we're tithing out of it, we got spending, we gotta pay our debits, our charge cards, we pay for our automobiles, because everybody buys their automobiles on time, right? Nobody pays cash for their, it's how much did you pay, how much, I can't tell you how many people I ask in the financial business, how much did you pay for that car? And they would tell me $4.99. No, how much did you pay? It's $4.99 a month, you know? No, what was the total price? I don't know.
Cash flow thinker.
It's all payments. Everything's about a payment. So we got all these things going on for college education, for paying off your, getting your home paid for monthly period. Did you know that 100 years ago, you could not even get a 30-year loan on a house?
where's
Impossible. Now you get a loan on your TV set. Okay.
You can rent your TV set.
And if you have extra money, what do you do with that extra money?
Put it
Savings.
in savings.
Put in savings. Thanks. Help me out here, folks. Okay, then when something happens, you know, and maybe the roof needs repair, car needs repair, we take it back out of the savings and fix the car or whatever it needed, right? Okay. And if we have enough left over in our savings account, what do?
Put it in.
We start building up into a retirement account. So here's where I spent years and years of helping people build up their IRAs and 401ks, so at some day in the future, we'd be able to have some money to live off of. Isn't that what you're told? Okay, think about this. How much, if I want $50,000 a year in income stream from my IRA or 401k built up, how much do I have to accumulate to be sure that I got about 50 grand a year or $4,000 a month?
Depends how long you want it.
let's say that I don't know.
Not a million.
Okay, your lease has $1 million, so that would be assuming you get a 5% net return off of $1 million, right? At $1 million,
Yeah.
at times 5%, I would be able to get $50,000 a year, right? Might have to pay some taxes on it, and of course I gotta allow for inflation and all that sort of stuff. Right now, with the way the market currently is, with the rates being so low, that number actually is a 2.8%, not 5, which makes that about almost $2 million to get that same income today. What happened in 2008? What happened to your 401ks and IRAs and stuff like that for all those guys?
Drop down.
How much?
Triple that.
Lost half.
About half. It's 52% loss in the S&P 500, and the NASDAQ even lost more. So that meant your $500,000 or your $1 million, if you had that at that time when it's invested in the equity market, it dropped to $500,000. Losing $500,000 a year, how's that feel? Right? Okay, is there a better way? All right, we're going to take away a look at possibly trying to change a paradigm shift here. We're trying to change you from accumulation thinking to cash flow thinking, okay? And creating income streams, 3-4 different sources of income stream. And we're going to talk about one simple one right now, so please don't get hung up on this one. This is just one of multiple strategies. Thanks to Ray, we're able to purchase a house with no payments. And remember, I claimed bankruptcy in 2010, right? I can't even get a credit card today. And I'm buying a house using strategies because I changed my thinking. And I was in this world for 35 years, okay? All right. Okay, let's turn the page over. And I want you to think differently, a little differently. It's not that much different, but your income still comes in. This is like a company now. Imagine a corporation, they got their income, cash flow coming in from selling burgers or whatever they're selling, furniture or whatever they're selling. And they stick it into their checking account. But instead of putting it just in the checking account, they immediately move it to something called an operating line of credit or a sweep account. Okay? They immediately put it in this thing called, we'll call it a sweep account for right now, but it can be called a line of credit, it can be called a revolving credit card, a revolving line of credit. It's kind of like immediately putting it on your charge card, another way of thinking of it in the personal lines, but in a personal basis. But I'm going to put the money over here as opposed to the savings. Now, when it's time to pay my bills, the last possible minute, 30, 60 day, whatever term I have, 24 days on the credit card, we're going to go ahead and take that money back out of here and put it in our checking account. But first of all, we're going to talk about this sweep account. We're going to take some money from here. We're going to take an extra $10,000 from this operating line of credit that the bank allows you to take. Just like getting a mortgage for $300,000. They're going to say, Larry, we think that we can loan you 10 grand. Now, for you bigger players in here, just add a 0, okay? This can be 100 grand, okay? I'm using 10, so the math is simple. We'll put whatever number on it, any more zeros on you want to. It works the same whether you're a multi-million-dollar company or whether you're a $100,000 investment advisor right now, or whether you're just going to start with something small like $10,000. Now, what I'm going to do with that $10,000, I'm actually going to put that into another asset. Okay, in this case, it's probably not another Dutch Brothers. That's $100,000. Okay, this is $10,000. We're going to find something to put that money into that's going to generate cash flow back to us. Got it? So if I borrow $10,000 and I buy $10,000 in some asset, how much spread? How much do I owe? I mean, what's my net worth compared to just minus 10 plus 10?
0.
Zero.
You guys all agree with that? If I minus 10 and add 10, I'm still at 0, right? So I haven't increased my debt. I've just moved some asset. Be sure you understand that. Now, some people want to secure this with a revolving line, with their accounts receivable in companies, or maybe their business, or their building, or maybe it's your home, or whatever, or maybe it's a CD. Because I had no credit, I had to secure mine with a CD. I had to put up money because they couldn't give me credit. So I had to put up 20 grand to make this start happening for me 2 or 3 years ago. And so I secured it because I couldn't get it. Which means I've got 20 grand doing what? Nothing. Okay. Well, my interest rate here was lower. Big deal. I wasn't getting paid anything for it. All right. Now, we're still going to pull the money out and pay our bills just like we did before. Electronically the same thing. The only difference is we're putting over here into an operating line of credit sweep account as opposed to putting over here to our savings account or leaving it in our checking account earning zero. You got that?
Mm-hmm.
You can have our savings and checking both earning zero. Instead, I'm gonna put over here, I'm gonna start generating, I don't know, I'm just gonna give some crazy number. We'll talk about this later and why it's actually safer to do this one vehicle right now. It can change in the future, but it's gonna pay about 12% back to here. All right? The difference is we're gonna have to pay 12% over a certain period of time of principal and interest. It's like a car payment. For 3 years, I'm having them pay me back all that 10K over a 3-year period of time. So it's a principal and interest payment at 12%, which, by the way, is about $340. Okay? Got it? Okay, $340 coming back from this $10,000 asset that I bought back into here. Now I'm going to make some assumptions here that your personal life, after we get through a bunch of different stuff, we find out that you've got $500 a month extra per month that you weren't spending in your outgo. And because we actually begin tracking the expenses, like Randy talked about, when you begin tracking your expenses, you'll save 7 to 10% of your outgo. Now, please hear me. This is not changing your lifestyle that says, I gotta live on beans and rice and beans for 7 years, so I can pay off all my stuff like houses like Dave Ramsey, and we taught Dave Ramsey. I love Dave Ramsey, it's great. But in 7 years from now, my house is paid off, but my wife has it, and I'm divorced, and she's debt-free. Because I've never taken her out to dinner for 7 years. That's not a way to live a life. You cannot save your way out of debt. It's nearly impossible just to save and save and save. Now, once you get there, and once you have no debt, then saving is a great deal. But it's difficult to save your way out of debt. Now, I'm also going to assume that, and that's something else, I'm going to assume that most of us like to have IRS give us a check back at the end of the year. We hate writing those checks to IRS, right? So we have them take out more than they need, so at the end of the year, they'll give us a check for $2,400 so we can pay our Christmas bill. Now, what have you just done with IRS?
Loan them your money.
Loan your money, and they gladly pay you how much percent interest, Larry?
0.
Zippo, right? So let's loan them money for free. They're my best friend, right? I really like the IRS. So I'm assuming after 3 to 7% here, and maybe a couple $100 here, and $500 here, that I'm going to make an assumption I've got $1,000 a month flowing through this system. I don't care whether it's your savings system or this system. We're going to do it over on this sweeper system. But I'm going to assume we got an extra $1,000. Okay? All right, this is mathematical now. If I had $1,000 going against $10,000 every single month, how long would it take to pay down $10,000?
10 months.
10 months, okay. But because of the process of, we also got $340 plus $1,000, now we got $1,340, how long does that take?
8 months.
It's about 8 months. Now, because of some of the other things we teach you how to use with how to pay your charge cards at the last possible minute, make sure you're using a charge card versus a debit card so you get 3% off on the Costco gas, you get 1% on everything else, or maybe you get miles. I don't know the last time we paid for air miles. Because I used a charge card for everything, and we fly Southwest, and I don't remember when the last time I paid for an air mile. Does that save me money? I don't have to pay $400 there, I get it because of the charge card? Okay, all that's ways to reduce your cost. It's not changing your lifestyle living on beans and rice. All right, that is going to actually cause this to be paid off in about 6 months. Now, if this is paid off in 6 months, I spent a little bit of interest along the way. What's happened to this 340 in 6 months? It's still going. So if this is paid off in 6 months, what could I do with this revolving line of credit again?
Put more in.
Reload it.
Reload it. I love that word. Thank you. Reload it with another 10,000. So I reload it with 10,000. I don't want to sit there. I go ahead and buy another one of these snowballs, right? Now, how much would this snowball pay me?
340.
$340. So now how much do I have coming back in here?
680.
Almost
680.
1,700.
Okay? So I got this plus that 1,000. Now it takes only 5 months to pay this off. So 5 months, now I get to do what?
Buy another one.
Reload it. Might let me reload it. So I reload it with another one. And now it takes 4 months. I reload it again. I reload it again. I'm not expecting you guys to do the math on this. I tell you, I argued with Suze's for a while on this one, and I did the math. I put in the amortization table, spread them all out. In about 36 months, assuming nothing changes up here in this $1,000 cash flow, you're just using the process, this amount, these 340s, in about 36 months, you will have generated about 10 of those. What is 10 times 340?
3,400.
Randy, you know the answer, you're not supposed to answer. I know you're so excited you can hardly
Yeah.
hold it back, but, now what happened in this 37th month of this one? This is a P&I, principal and interest payment for 36 months. What happened in the 37th month?
It went to zero.
It went to zero. So that means I got a minus 340 from that $3,400, so that means I'm only with $3,000. Oh shoot, $3,000 additional monthly income, okay? Now if I have $3,000 additional monthly income, does that help anything in your personal lifestyle at all? Would that help us crash out debt pretty quickly? Down here on this bottom line of the system? If 3,000 plus, how much is that?
1,000,
So 1,000 plus 3,000 is how much?
4,000,
If I divide 4,000 into 10,000, what is that?
4.
2.5 months, right?
2.5, yeah.
2.5 months. So you see why the snowball, we call it a snowball because it begins to accelerate faster and faster and faster. And maybe suddenly you need to move it up to $20,000 line of credit, okay? And by the way, another smart thing to do is actually get a revolving line of credit that might be worth, say, $40,000. But I'm only using 10 of it, okay? I'm only using 10 of it. If I use the 10, I have how much left in my revolving line of credit?
30.
30. How much interest am I paying on the 30 that I haven't borrowed out?
No.
Zero, folks, zero. It's not a principal and payment. It's zero. Which means if something happens over here that you had all the savings account for your Christmas, etc., and emergency, how much do I have sitting over here?
30.
I have 30 available should I need it. Okay? Before having to build up over here, if I actually had 30,000, that means I'm missing out on 3 of these immediately. $1,000 a month. Now this is what businesses do. This is not complicated. This is math. That's all it is. By the way, to make sure you guys understand, this is not $1,000 here. It's not a payment to an IRA or 401k or an insurance policy. This is just whatever it is. Maybe one month it's negative. Maybe another month, because you're in a real estate business, it's $5,000 or $10,000 that month. This is whatever it is revolving through the system. It has nothing to do with a payment. I can't afford $1,000 a month. This is actually only $500. We found an extra $500 because of the IRS discipline and tracking your expenses. By the way, when you track your expenses, a lot of people, I use Quicken, I use QuickBooks, or I use Mint.com. That tells you what you did, but the way to track it is as you do it. And that's why the envelope system works so well for Dave Ramsey. I just go through all that mess and put it in envelopes and only take it out for the grocery one and for the Starbucks one, etc. How many of you guys like to do that one? And also cut up your charge cards. Why did we cut up our charge cards?
Just we don't do discipline.
Because we had no discipline. But if every time I go to spend groceries, I put it in my app or type it in and it says, I just spent $73, you now have $223 left. Later in the month, I got $70 left. Later in the month, my wife says, honey, we have no more money for the groceries for the rest of the month. For the next 4 or 5 days, you're going to have to live out of the pantry. That was our choice. It was our choice, not somebody else telling me what we couldn't do. I would rather spend $100, instead of $200 at Starbucks, I'd rather spend $100 at Starbucks and $100 on vacations. That's what I'm talking about. Decide what you want to do and then do it. Okay, what do payments really cost us? Move to that next slide here. I'm going to talk about what a payment really costs. By the way, if you had a $300,000 mortgage and you actually paid it out for the full 30 years without changing, which it's actually worse than this because you'll usually refinance in 5 years or less or buy another house, how much will I pay in interest over that period of time? I got the answer up there so you can yell it out. 700,000. 700 plus 300,000 is how much? So you thought you were buying a $300,000 house, but you just bought $1 million house. Okay, pretty smart idea. And then your mortgage broker comes along and says, hey, if we can lower your interest rate a percentage and say you get $200 on your mortgage payment. Now he's extended you back out 30 years. The first 5 years of a mortgage payment, 80% of what you pay is what? Interest. So he saved you 1%, but you're paying 80% in the first 5 years and you refinance in 5 years. Or you've added your car payments in there so you can extend a car payment after 30 years. I've taken a 5-year car payment, now made it a 30-year car payment. Now, believe me, these mortgage brokers think that's right, because they were thinking payment structure too. Okay? There's nothing wrong with mortgage brokers, we might need that to get going. But we get one, then we get it paid off quickly, and we get a second rental, and we get a third investment, then we buy a Starbucks, then we buy a, an apartment complex, or whatever else, or a mobile home park, okay? Here's a real life story. This girl's name is Laura. And I'll tell you the truth, this is actually Laura right here, and that's my son-in-law, Christian. I told her that I wanted her to marry a Christian, so she did. And she started this program a couple of years ago now, and they were $300,000 for mortgage, $115,000 in college debt, because I was not able to fund her college like I did to her older daughter, to speech pathology. We went and got speech pathology. Both have good jobs, both graduated from University of Denver. 2 car payments, a house payment, and $115,000 in student loans. Okay, they were paying about $5,000 a month in payments. How much of that $5,000 a month in payments was actually going towards principal, do you think?
Half or less.
Half or less, way less. It was the early parts of the mortgage, early parts of the car payments. Less than $500 of the $5,000 is going to interest, to the actual principal. That's $4,500 paying to help somebody else get wealthy. How do we turn that around? How much would she have to make? How much would I have to teach her how to put into an investment portfolio like I did for 30-some plus years to equal what she needed $5,000 a month to pay for? I know, Linda, because mathematically you don't like this stuff, so you can go to sleep on this one, that's all right. But I gotta tell you that basically she's gotta earn $80,000 before tax to have 60 to have 5,000 a month, which means if I use that same 5% number that I used before to get that 80, I would have to have invested $1.6 million for her, and that would be at risk. Now, if, on the other hand, if they had their house paid off, their cars paid off, and their college debt paid off, isn't that the same as $1.6 million without risk? I don't have to worry about 2008 and the market dropping in half and losing $500,000. And how likely ability is it that I would, in the next 3 to 4 years or 7 years, be able to help her get rid of all that debt using it the old style? By having them accumulate and save out of their savings account, checking account, cut from the 401ks. How much per month would that be? Crazy? All right. Well, they basically changed their way of thinking. My daughter actually decided to choose her spending tracker and actually reduced her, she can when I tell you this, but she chose to lower her clothing budget down to $500 a month.
Well-dressed lady.
Now, since that, she's gone way below that again, but that's just the point. The point is that she chose what they wanted to spend money on. And now today, they basically took an upside on the market in Denver, sold their house, moved into a studio for a while, and then got a better job in Seattle, just got moved. She hasn't even started working yet because, that's how much she makes, about $70,000 a year. Right? When she has no debt, they don't have to pay that. Okay? She's still got a little bit of student debt left, but they paid off their cars, covered their house, made an upside on that, and paid off probably over half of the student debt. I couldn't have done that by doing it the way that I've been teaching people years. By the way, if I go back and then remember we were building those snowballs up there and those things you were doing, right? We had $10,000 here. What if I took, one of these later ones that started to build income and say I took half of that money, that $5,000? So I borrowed it from the bank in a sense, and I take $5,000 and I apply it against that $300,000 mortgage. What does that do? Does it make sense for you to borrow at, say, a 12% interest rate on a revolving line of credit to pay off a $5,000 chunk against your mortgage? Doesn't it make that, I don't know about you, but that doesn't make any sense, does it? Okay, let's see what actually happens. So here's $300,000. I attack it with $5,000. In this particular example, I was paying $2,000 in payments, only $234 was principal, $1,800 was interest. I actually moved the mortgage balance down to $295, so I moved it down to the 21st payment. Okay? If I add those all up on the interest that I then don't pay, I paid it all against principal. What happens, I end up with about $37,000 of interest that I don't pay. $5,000 to eliminate 21 months worth of interest, $37,000. What mortgage broker tells you that? I don't mind the mortgage at first. Let's get rid of it though as quick as we can. We're getting rid of mortgages in 3-4 years. Not by making an extra payment once a year, but in 3 to 4 or 5 years, following the strategies, this is just one of multiple strategies we're basically eliminating mortgages payments and then allowing to get investment property or other cash flow real estate or investments or franchises, etc. So with that, I'm going to keep it, this is again, this basic stuff right here. Entity structuring, tax structuring, there's all sorts of things that we mentioned early on, how to reduce risk management. But let's keep it to my hour, or it's going to beat me up.
All right. If you take out the card that's in the middle, as I'm finishing up here, you might want to just fill that out. What we were asking you to do is really no obligation, but maybe schedule an appointment to talk to Stuart and look at what a strategy might be for you, what could work for you. And if you want to give us some of the information on the back, that would be great. And really what we want to do is coach you through what is possible. So here's what we provide for you as we walk through this. A step-by-step plan tailored to your needs. It's so important you notice tailored to your needs. A lot of people have a lot of different ways. We met with somebody the other day, and she'd been somebody that in the past Stuart had actually had help on just kind of on a beneficial basis. But as we started talking to her about all this, she says, oh, well, I'm inheriting, and she's all of a sudden talking about over $1 million that she's inheriting. Well, our strategy was suddenly changed as to what it is that we could do for her. But Stuart's got a lot of access to a lot of different strategies, so depending on the answers to those questions on the back of your form, you'll get a strategy that's built exactly for you, tailored to your needs. I love this voice-activated spending tracker. If you can imagine, it actually talks to you and tells you how much money you have left as you've made choices about how you want to spend it. If you're not the spender in your family, maybe your husband or your wife could really use a spending tracker that would tell her that information. 60-point cash flow analysis to look at how your cash flow is going and what you could do to change that cash flow. 15 workshops and strategies in different ways that you can put your money to work and how to make that happen. Regular pre-scheduled checkups to say, how you doing? Are you making progress? What's going on? Progress reports looking at, here's the investments that you've made, and here's the value that those investments have. How is that cash flow going? Meetings scheduled with banks or credit unions so you can set up the line of credit so you can work those kind of issues out. Help with account setup if applicable. Again, we look at what works for you. If it looks like it makes sense to set up an account like we talked about today as one of the strategies, then we'll get some help with that. And research by personal financial assistants to find the best strategy and approach for you. And a money-back guarantee, which is really great, at least in one of these strategies. You do what is told to do. You take these steps, and they say at the end of, what is it, Stuart, 1 year or 3 years?
1 year. In 1 year we haven't generated more money than the one product, the Tortoise Wealth Strategy, will actually give you back your money. If you do this stuff, they guarantee that, hey, I don't know how many coaches that you've had, fitness coaches or any other kind of coaches that says, hey, I guarantee that if I don't do this, I think Larry does, by the way, Larry Briggs, he guarantees whatever, for instance, but most coaches, you know, go to fitness coach or weight coach or whatever,
Right.
you know.
Or usually maybe 90 days, if anything. They're here for the whole year. You look at, did I make back the cost of the program? They'll give your money back. So there you go. We want to guide you to apply the 5 changes of thinking as we talked about tonight. To learn strategies to generate cash flow so that you know what works best for you. To eliminate debt while increasing your margins. To be ready for the economic cycles that are coming up. And so here's what's next. We really want to encourage you to take action. Taking action is really easy. Just write down, give us your information so that we can be in contact. Fill out on the back side, we call that our pre-coaching form. If you want to, there's no obligation to do so. You can sign up for a call without it, but if you'd like to, put down some of that information so we have something to look at and prepare for you. Schedule a one-on-one call. On that form is a time when you can make a call, when you can say this is the best time for us to talk. Do it today because it's the opportunity 3 years from now keeps marching on, right? Every day it's one more day further, and it could be a time when you have these strategies working for you for those 36